Good evening, everybody. This is the Hashdads with the second episode of the Hashcast, and I have two other super cool guests for you tonight. With me, I have Eric V. Bailey.
Hi, what's up?
And I have Reed S. Elders.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And of course, I am Hashdads. So I found myself some guests because these three gentlemen, and myself included, have something in common, that we're all a bunch of nerds, but we're also a bunch of dads. So I really wanted to find some friends online to have that conversation on two things. One, like, why is gaming so important to us? And I don't mean like why is playing games, but like the concept of gaming, like why is that hobby? Why does it stand out from everything else? And two, like the big change in our lives, like becoming a parent, like how did that influence the hobby, and how did it change how we started seeing it? Because for me, it's a huge difference from even 4 years ago. So it's going to be a bit of a story time episode tonight, and I'm going to just ask these guys to start off with their experiences. But first, let me allow them to introduce themselves in case you haven't heard of them, which would be pretty rare, but we'll do that anyway. So Reed, can you give us a quick intro? Who are you?
Yeah, so hey, I'm Reed Albers. I work with the Entertainment Software Associations. I do digital media and social media for E3 and the ESA. If you've ever seen the E3 Twitter feed on your Twitter feed, I apologize. That's me invading the Twitter feed. It's a lot of fun. It's been a tremendous honor to get to build that social audience, and I really love being able to talk to gamers every day about the thing they love and being able to do it on a platform they love. So
cool. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, my name is Eric Bailey. I have nothing to do with the industry whatsoever, but I would consider myself a hobbyist, and I've been more active in the retro gaming community, but I am addicted to Twitter enough and loud enough there that I gather enough attention to force myself into the occasional conversation. So I try to keep up with the scene and just have fun, whatever that means.
Well, you seem to do pretty well for yourself, both of you, on the Twitters. That's kind of where we all hang out, I suppose. Like, we've been around for years now, and you are a couple of faces that always pop up. So I figured I'm going to ask these guys to come on the show, and we'll have a good conversation. So, Erica, you mentioned you're big on the retro gaming, so that tells me you're either like super old or you just got into it very late. Where does this all start for your hobby?
Yeah, so retro gaming is a funny thing. People are always surprised at how young I am, despite what I've played. I am 32 years old. I don't know if that's old or young, but some people seem to think it's pretty young. Yeah. Part of it was, how do I say this? Part of it's economic, because I never had like the newest games. Mm-hmm. Like growing up, I was always playing a generation or two behind. And part of it's also personality, where if I really like a game, I don't really ever stop playing. Mm-hmm. So I don't really get rid of games. I just, I'm still playing Marble Madness on NES 25 years later just because I'm insane like that. So, and sometimes there's excuses like modern shooters give me motion sickness, but I've never had a modern console anyway, so I'm a retro gamer by necessity as much as by interest.
Okay. How about yourself, Reed? Where did you start?
You know, when I was in Florida growing up, I remember going to my friend Craig Jackson's house, and he had a Sega Genesis and Mortal Kombat and Altered Beast, and I remember him telling me like Altered Beast was the best graphics in video games ever, which, you know, that was like 1992, 1993 or something, and I fell in love with it and told my parents about it as a little kid. Must have like talked their heads off about it, and finally after a while when we moved to Virginia, they got us a Sega Genesis for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and really that was kind of the beginning. And from then on, my parents were always like, well, should you really be on that game system? And then now I work in the industry, and they're like, hey, that game system worked out, so, you know, thank you, Mom and Dad.
That's good. Excellent. Yeah. And for me, I think I started with the Commodore 64. I don't want to age myself too bad, but that was just in the house when I was a kid. But there was something magical about playing a video game from a cassette tape. like there's probably a part of my audience that's gonna be like, what is a cassette tape anyway? But yeah, so that worked. And then I begged my mom for a Game Boy, and she was like, "Yeah, that's not gonna happen because it was just too expensive back then. Like a single mom with 4 kids." So I kind of gave up on it. And then on my birthday, I got this big giant box. I was like, "Well, there can be a Game Boy," but it was NES, and it just kind of kicked off my terrible habits that I still carry with me. But I do upgrade now because I'm a little spoiled, and I always want to have the shiniest toy. So I kept up with it, but it's been an interesting hobby. But Eric, like when you were a kid, like you probably did more things than just playing video games. Like why did this thing stuck?
Yeah, I enjoyed even like other kinds of games. Like I played competitive card games. I've never been in great shape, but I did enjoy sports enough that I was on a team. I would prowl the neighborhood to play basketball. But video games, it's sticks for so many reasons. I love the immersion of it. Mm-hmm. If you love story, how cool is it that you feel that you're a part of it? Mm-hmm. Like, I enjoy movies and books, but in a video game, I'm actually the one making every decision. I am in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And video games, there's very much the analogy of being in control. I mean, we literally call it, a controller.
Yeah.
And if you're a control freak, that's a wonderful thing. If I'm playing a game with a friend, my friend might be a jerk or give me a terrible time, or he might win, and that's not fun. And, but a video game, that's up to me. I determine my experience.
Yeah.
It's my own private thing. I control it. It's my fun. I play for as long as I want. Do what I want. It's great. I feel so empowered and victorious every time.
How about you, Reed? What made it stick out from other hobbies when you were a kid?
I think I credit my brother because, I grew up playing Sonic and liking the Street Charades and stuff, but some of my best video game moments are playing sports games with my brother because we both were athletic. We played lacrosse, and he really loved Madden, and I really loved the NHL series. And so we had a very competitive, friendly, sometimes ultra-competitive brother-brother rivalry. But that kind of brought us together to play games together, and I always really cherished those moments. And then as he got older and started going, he was in middle school and I was younger, I started just playing kind of games by myself. And I remember getting Final Fantasy VII on the PS1, and I had never played a Final Fantasy before, and it just kind of blew my mind that a game could be this big and have this in-depth of a story and have all these systems. I didn't understand anything. I didn't even understand materia. Like, if I went and looked at my characters, they would probably look terrible, but I had so much fun. And then I realized, wait, this is the 7th Final Fantasy? What? Hold on a second. And it kind of opened the door to this whole new world of games that really, I'd only been playing sports games with my brother and platformers, to then playing strategy games, to puzzle games, to online RPGs and things like that. And really, I think that really just my brother and I growing up together, having that competitive nature, wanting to play games, just engaged me on the platform and got me more and more interested into seeing what else was there.
Yeah, I think for myself, I also have 2 older brothers, especially when the whole Commodore 64 era, where they were super good at it and I really couldn't. But for the rest, I think when my mom bought me that Nintendo, it was a huge deal, but I think she almost immediately regretted it because as soon as my brothers and my stepfather started playing Zelda, that just took over. That took over the living room. And my mom, who wanted to just watch a soap opera, I was like, I can't watch my show anymore. So my stepdad actually found a second TV and put it in their bedroom so she could watch her stupid soap. So everyone was obsessing over Zelda. But there's some, I think in my formative years when I was young, some moments with playing with my family that just really put its claws in me since then. Because I've probably had multiple hobbies, but this one is one that always keeps returning. And I hear brothers, friends, that's probably just such a big aspect of it. But I find it interesting to see that moment. And for myself, I can recall very well, and it was a Zelda moment first, where I came down in the morning and my brother told me that they found a frog suit in Zelda that could let you swim across the water. but you could buy it for 256 rupees, and the cap in this game is 255. Like it's like a hard cap. So I spent like the entire Saturday trying to find like the golden rupee that would bump it up to 256. Assholes.
Yeah. Someone told me there was a stone temple hidden in Ocarina of Time. If I ran around the Gerudo Desert long enough, you'd come across it. And I did that for a couple hours until I realized I was being had. And never again.
Okay, see, for me, it was my friend. He got NBA Jam. And so we were discovering like all the hidden characters. And he had an older brother. And so one day his older brother's like, you guys, I just played as Barney the dinosaur.
Yes.
He's like going down the court like this. He's back. And we're like, no, you weren't. And he's like, oh, yeah, you just have to beat the computer without letting them score a single point. So we tried like all afternoon and couldn't do it. We were so angry. We thought he was lying.
There's probably like hundreds of these stories that my brothers pull on me when it comes to video games, but it's the memories of that stuck. Like playing. Have you guys? Well, maybe Eric, you might be in your catalog, The Adventures of Lolo.
Yeah, not a whole lot of experience, but they're solid little like overhead puzzle games, really charming.
Yeah,
not super difficult but challenging.
Yeah, so that was another game that just took over the entire family, and even my mom got in on this one because it's like a puzzle game, and just problem solving with like my two brothers, my sister, my mom, and my stepdad. Like that's an experience I don't think I'll get ever in any other hobby. Have you ever heard of Lolo, Reed?
No, I haven't played it, but I think that what that story kind of tells me, and what kind of hearing the stories of us growing up, is it shows you how games are social. Everyone thinks video gamers are these shut-ins who don't want to, talk to friends or have friends. But if you look at it, you have three stories of family, social interaction, friends or brothers or anyone, a role model in your life, or someone like that, a mentor, playing games with you and doing something fun, engaging in something really fun. So even if you can't recognize the game, I think it still shows the power of games to bring people together in a way that's socially positive, when everybody's always saying games are not something that brings people together. We just sit in our basements and play games all day.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just saying, I mean, we're here now because it's a positive social thing. So
yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go as well, because it's easy to find like, okay, I was a kid and it just blew my mind to play games, because it is very impressive, especially when you've never seen it before. But now later on, it became all these other stepping stones. What I used it for, like first was just blowing my mind, and then I was very heavy, like, no, it's an outlet for me, as if I had like a ton of stuff that I had to let out. But like in all these phases of my life, it came back, like teenager, escapism, maybe a bit of an outlet, and now as an adult, it's one big part is just shutting off my brain, because I can't really stress when I'm playing well, it depends on the game. But it had all these different aspects. Like if you look at your life, Reed, like, do you have the same experience? How it kind of hopped into meeting this?
Yeah, actually, I'd say one of the things growing up with a brother who was very athletic and being an athlete myself, I was always on the cusp. I was like the kid on the sports field who knew about all the, I guess you'd say, geeky or nerdy stuff, like Star Trek and all that, but I wasn't like all the way in on it. I was like, oh, it's cool, but I don't know, the guys might make fun of me or something, and that kind of stunk. But then over time, by meeting people through games and playing games, video games opened me up to all sorts of different media and different storytelling ideas and ways to do it. It got me interested in things like video production. I wanted to know how to make game trailers, because I grew up watching E3, and I just thought trailers were so much fun to watch, and like how excited people get. So I learned, video editing pretty young, and, messed around with it. And I'd say that, we see this a lot, and we talk about a lot at ESA, is that video games are that stepping stone. You pick up a controller, that doesn't mean you're going to be a game developer down the road, but it does mean you're going to be familiar with technology, and you're going to understand technology build, and you're going to be more willing to try different types of technology. I'd say that gamers are known for just embracing the newest thing or trying newest apt in breaking it and trying to figure out what works and not. And that's something that comes from being a gamer, just being around this tech and kind of being not pushed into it, but going like, well, okay, there's mods for there's mods for Half-Life, and there's one called Counter-Strike. How do I do this? Or, well, hold on a second. How do what retro system do I need to play if I want to play the entire Final Fantasy series from start to finish? And what are the numbers actually, because they're changed in Japan? And that's just sort of that cool rabbit hole you go down because of games.
Yeah. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, so I don't want to go out too far in the weeds, but I was thinking about this. You got me thinking.
Ooh.
And the role of gaming in my life hasn't really changed all that much. Mm-hmm. I still just kind of play to zone out, and it's a mix of that outlet, but also the escapism. Like, I hear you say that. But what has changed is it takes up less of my time. I don't have as much time for it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing is, when I was a kid and I would play a video game, that might be the highlight of my day. Yeah. Like, that would be like, if mom was like, hey, it's time for dinner, I'd be like, no, I am about to beat Ganon. Like, shut up and go away. I can hear you. I'm in this. Now it's like, a good moment with my wife or my kid is always going to trump games. Yeah. Even though I enjoy them the same way. Yeah. So that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier in the week, but I enjoy them to the same extent. It's just the other stuff in my life is bigger now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's fair. I'm the same way, and we'll get into that a little deeper later, because once you hit the big dad phase in your life, like, everything changes. Mm-hmm. But the impact that it had, like, for you, Reed, it had a big impact as you work in the games now. Eric, when I look at your social presence, at least, like you just rebranded, but you used to go on Twitter as Nintendo Legend. You kind of build a brand for yourself on that. For myself, it was always a hobby until like a couple of years ago when I started messing around on the Twitter. But I was talking to my wife about this, and one of the biggest change, not like a personality change, but when I got involved in like the gaming industry community, all of a sudden I started to know a lot more people. Like, I started getting involved with an Able Gamers organization, with the Take This organization. Mm-hmm. And those are links through gaming that I would have never thought possible when I was playing Legend of Zelda when I was a kid. That at some point in my life I would be holding up a TV screen for a girl who can only move her eyes and is now playing a game with eye tracking, and it's just literally blowing her mind. And that is also something that I start to appreciate a lot more once you do get involved a little beyond the screen, that there's so much good to be done in this industry. And maybe, Reed, you can, like, you've done even more than me on this aspect. Like, you've had a whole democratic platform based on gamers, so it's such a huge world other than picking up the controller and playing a game.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's true. And I think what you're seeing now is games are becoming a part of our culture, and I think that's kind of the effect of that. Games aren't just this distraction or escapism or even just a game. They're art. Some games are just like they take themselves as seriously as high art. Other games, like Grand Theft Auto, can be likened to The Godfather, and can be kind of transformative when you think about it. I mean, a lot of kids remember the first time they saw The Godfather, which might be that kind of the same effect that happens to a kid who's 18 or 17 and gets Grand Theft Auto and plays it the first time, and it makes them realize that there's a lot more to games. And also, games has brought together an incredible community. Gamers are really incredible people, whether it be Extra Life, whether it be Take This, whether it be Able Gamers, or any of the other amazing charities out there that support gamers. It's unbelievable how much money the game industry, the game fans, not the industry, but the fans raise to donate, how much time they will donate, what they will go to, what lengths they will go to make a mod, to make something work for other people. I think that's the most amazing thing, is when gamers are fixing the games that they're playing because the developers are working on something else, or the fans just go, well, the game just came out and you gave us the dev kit and I code and I can do it. All that goodwill is always there, and it gets directed at some really incredible places. And it's really amazing to think that this hobby, and really more, I'd say, lifestyle now more than ever, has really just grown. And I think that's because games are part of our culture. And so we think about that like, oh, what can I do with video games that I like to do that will help people? That's something people didn't think about 15, 20 years ago because they were too busy thinking about, well, that's just a game. It can't actually cause change. Well, we know that from Games for Change, from all the Games for Good, yes, that is possible, and the community does incredible stuff. And that's just because of the way we've matured as an industry and as a community.
Yeah. Eric, go ahead.
I agree. Video games are part of culture. Everybody plays video games now.
Yeah.
It's no longer this obscure thing, this thing that's in a basement, this private taboo thing. And there's so many... I think you're a little more in tune with all the great facets of it than I am, but it's so true that gaming gets its fingers into everything else. And like what you talked about, well, like me building a brand or whatever, that only happened because I wanted to write a blog anyway. I didn't know what to write about. So I started writing about old Nintendo games. And then suddenly I had like 10,000 Twitter followers. I'm like, there's a lot of people that like talking about old Nintendo games, and it's great to discover there's a great community of people out there, a very diverse community of people on various ages and what they're doing with their lives. But gaming is this common cultural touchstone they all have, and it's just one healthy part of their life, and through that, a lot of great things are happening.
Yeah. The way I always think of it is, I think a lot of young boys remember the first time they played catch with their dad, or the first time they threw a football or rode a bike, and young girls too, first time they played catch or played soccer with their mom or dad. And that was like, a moment that set them on the path of, oh, I want to do sports. And that's kind of happening now with video games. It's the first time I played Mario Kart with mom or dad, or it's the first time my older brother showed me his video game system or let me play alongside him. And those are those moments that really create fans and create community from the very beginning.
Yeah, you guys did a video last year, Reed, on first memories, and I enjoyed that video because it seems like everybody that still plays games as an adult or has started playing games as an adult has these very distinct memories of their first experience with it. And it's like, I've done a lot of things for the first time. I don't remember all of them, but like with my games, I'm like, that just clicked for me. And I'm glad that, like, I went through a couple of phases where I played games but didn't really tell anyone. Then I had a bunch of like nerdy game friends, and it was like all we talked about. And then in my adult life, I got a little hesitant about it again. Like, I'm not sure if this is like super cool. And now I'm like openly a huge dork about it. And I'm so happy to see that acceptance grow. Like you say, like parents playing with their kids, building these memories around this is pretty cool. But now we're talking about the kids. Like, I have a 3-year-old. She's too young to play. Like, I put her in front of a dance of yourself Just Dance once. Didn't really get it. But I am on one side looking forward to play with her, but I'm also hesitant to like force it on her, if you know what I mean, because I see that sometimes on social, like, oh yeah, my kid is 2.5 and she really wanted to dress up like Han Solo. I'm like, did she though?
My 1-year-old just did a Hadoken for the first time.
Yeah. My kid does know how to do Hadoken, just saying, but it's just to get the bears out of her bedroom.
Nice.
But like, how do you already play with your kids or read?
Yeah, actually, Kinley, my daughter, she's 3 as well, and her favorite game is Just Dance. And it's funny because, when I got Just Dance, I figured, well, at ESA we use that a lot for like our holiday parties. It's a really fun game that a big group can play. And you also don't need to hold a controller to play it. You can just dance alongside it. And what I found was at first she didn't really understand, but she knew something was on screen, but then she really liked the songs and she really liked the visuals. So then I started doing the dances and she started following, and over time, over like a period of a few weeks, she just wanted to play it more, wanted to hear songs, and the songs were the same 3 songs over and over again. Cake by the Ocean, some Halloween song, and the Numa Numa song by Ozone. And I had to, like, on my Spotify end of the year, those were like in my top 5 plays. Because every time in the car, my daughter wanted to hear the song, and when we were in the car, she would start doing the dance moves. And it was just so impressive to me that she couldn't do all of them, but she was picking up the motor skills of these games. And I was just so amazed. And I was like, that's my daughter playing video games, and she's playing a dancing game. And I would never play this game on my own time because I'm really not into this games, even though I love music, but my daughter wants to play with me. So yeah, I love Just Dance. It's like my favorite game now. So I mean, she's definitely, but like you said about forcing it on her, I feel like, she's going to be her own person, but she's going to be around games. I work in the industry, you guys, we all play them. They're going to see them. And I think that, growing up, I didn't see my dad play a lot of video games unless he played with us. But seeing your dad or mom play on their own as a form of entertainment is going to make them more interested in it. And so I don't even know if you really need to force it so much as you just need to play something fun that makes them go like, oh, that's cool. Like I got Super Lucky's Tale on the Xbox, and my daughter can't play it because it's too complex, but she likes to sit there and watch me run around in the game. And I know that in a few years she might want to play Super Lucky's Tale, and that's so,
Exposure cultivates curiosity.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Eric? Are your kids playing yet, or?
The short answer is no.
Yeah.
So I have a son that turns 1 this month in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And I have a daughter who's 3, and she knows I play video games. For her, what will happen is in the mornings I get up before my wife does, and sometimes I'll squeeze in a little bit of gaming time. And so if my daughter happens to get up early, she'll just kind of wander into my office and kind of curl up on my lap. And so you become very hyper aware of the content of what you're playing.
Yeah.
So it's one thing playing Breath of the Wild. She's like, oh, Daddy, look, there's a fox over there. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, there's a fox. Oh, let's climb this tree. Yeah. But I've been playing Skyrim recently without realizing how violent it can be.
Yeah.
Until she's sitting on my lap and she's like, Daddy, what do you do to that guy? It's like, well, we were fighting. He was trying to hurt me, and I can't let him do that. So, oh, okay. Yeah, Daddy, he's not moving. No, he's not moving. But she not quite there yet in terms of understanding the connection between what I'm doing and what's happening on screen.
Yeah. I played some Breath of the Wild as well with my daughter when she was watching, and she loved the animals, and then the animals are stakes now. It happens.
Yeah.
But she likes watching it as well. I played this game with her grandfather. It's quiz time. It's like a quiz game. Mm-hmm. But the hostess is like this floating girl. She kind of looks like Elsa. That's probably why she's attached to it. But she could watch it for hours, and it's perfect for me because then I get my time in, and we chat, and we play, and she's watching the TV as if she's watching a movie. So that is great. But
it's always nice when you find the game your daughter can sit and watch and be completely thrilled. Because I think my daughter is convinced Super Lucky's Tale is a cartoon. I don't think she knows it's a video game. I think she thinks it's actually like a cartoon show. And
that's fun.
So that's the one I gotta find. But it's it's fun to play with my kids, and I hope she will one day kick my ass in Mario Kart. But if she doesn't get attracted to them, that's fine as well. But you mentioned it briefly, Eric, you become hyper aware of the content of your games, not just for her, but becoming that parent. Did not your enjoyment, but your experience of games change as well, and you might not have this as much in retro games, but now that you're playing Skyrim, do you experience games differently?
Yes and no. Like I said earlier, it's just a different. It used to be about looking for the game that looked like it would be the best. Mm-hmm. Like you go to a movie theater and you pick the movie that you think will be the best one. And gaming used to be like that for me. Like, I want the best experience out there. What's the big, huge game out right now? That's what I want to play. Now it's very much like, what's a good game that would fit in my life?
Yeah.
Like if I can sit down and play it for 15 minutes before I have to go to work.
Yeah.
So that's why last year, Breath of the Wild was basically the only game I played all year.
Yeah.
I joked about it, but it was literally true. Like from March until December, that was basically it.
Yeah.
So between those 9 months, I put 200 hours in somewhere. Mm-hmm. It was an hour here, 20 minutes there. And fortunately, I love the game, and it's a good game, but it's a priority thing. It's a time thing. It's an economy of where I could put it. So from now, it's like I don't have to get that whole complete cinematic emotional payoff.
Yeah.
I just need some relaxing enjoyment. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's the experience for me, pretty much the same, even though I've tried playing like a Persona 5, which is like 100 hours of time I don't have, and I also got Monster Hunter for some reason, which is also like a 100,000 hour game. But I started looking specific for games on my website. I call these parental advisory games, pick up and play, where you can play for 20 minutes and then turn it off and you still feel like you've accomplished something. Because I think that's where a lot of games are going for now, is that it demands that investment. And while I love those games, I find myself skipping them more and more often, and getting like an Iconoclast on the Vita that I can play and just put it in rest mode afterwards, or Life is Strange, where I can take 3 hours for myself and finish the game. You just, like, I consume my games a lot different, and I'm trying to work on that fear of missing out issue, because sometimes I just don't really care anymore that everybody else is playing it. Is that the same for you, Reed?
Yeah, I'd say that I definitely noticed my game habits change. You know, when you're in college or high school, it's like you play after school, you play at night, you play for friends, or, you know, play on the weekends. But having a daughter and a wife, you know, you got responsibilities, so you change it. And the biggest change I noticed was that because I commute to D.C. from Virginia, and it can be a fairly long commute, depending on if Metro is acting up or not, it usually is, video games like the Vita was my favorite system for about a year, because I played so many indie games on it and so many great visual novels. And it's because I had all this time on a train where I'm just sitting there anyway, and, you know, I'm not going to be, you know, you're not really talking to people on the train. That's not really what people do in D.C. And, you know, I've read enough, you know, news about politics. I don't need to pick up the political papers they hand out for free that you can read on paper. So I'm just playing these games, and I was just like burning through, like, you know, a bunch of Lambeer games and all these Japanese games and visual novels. But at home, what I noticed a change was I got a little more conscious about what I was playing when I realized my daughter was 3 in November. When my daughter turned 3, she still was really young, you know, walking and running around the house, and I was playing Rainbow Six Siege, and I love the game. And I'm just kind of playing it, and she walks in, she's like, "What's that, Daddy?" And I'm like, have a pump shotgun in my hand, and I'm like, It's like, oh my God, this moment happened. Like, I worked in the industry, and this moment just happened to me. It's happening to me. And so the way I handled it was I said, you know what? That's not really, you know, this is a game for adults, so we're gonna do something else. And I just turned it off and, you know, took the L. My teammates probably hated me, but you know, I felt like my parents, they let me play M-rated games before I was 18, but they didn't do that when I was 3 years old, and they didn't do it when I was 9 years old, and they were very hesitant when I was 13 years old. You know, they were engaged with it, and so it made me realize that, like, I should be engaged with thinking about what she's watching, and also on television, like, you know, what should I have on and not. And it's just so easy to change the channel or come up with an excuse. So what I kind of learned was, like, just be conscious if she's up, maybe not playing those games. And when she goes down, break out Rainbow Six Siege and, have a good time. You're shooting a pop shotgun around. So I'd really say that was the biggest change for me. It's just kind of having that moment of figuring out when to play and finding out on the train and when I commute was really one of the best times to do it. And also that idea of what am I playing and when am I playing it and if that's the right thing to do as a father because, I don't need my kid going to daycare. Like, yeah, my daddy's really good at smoke and uses, the Uzi really well, But, when she's 13 or 14, if she wants to play Rainbow Six Siege 4 or 5 or whatever it is when it comes out with then, that's something that I as a parent would think about and go like, well, let me look at this. And it made me more conscious of doing that.
Yeah.
It's like I work at a place where I tell parents to do that, and now I'm telling myself to do it. And it's really kind of fun to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was a big hippie when I was a kid, and she was like super, super on the violence of video games. Like, she made me return Mortal Kombat 3 I remember this because I had like a countdown on my wall when Mortal Kombat, because it would always come out on the same dates. Everybody, like release dates and stuff and trailers were a big thing. But I knew that Mortal Kombat Day was coming, and I got it, and my mom watched like for 10 minutes. She was like, yeah, that's going back to the store. I was like, no.
Do you remember what the moment was? Did you was it Kano ripping a heart out or something?
No, it was Mortal Kombat 3, so it was probably like a stupid thing too. I was like, but I just saved money for months, and I ended up buying Theme Park instead.
Yeah, not a bad game.
Yeah, but now, I remember when she was super tiny, just a baby, and I was playing Bloodborne, and I had her facing away from the TV because she just was sleeping. But then I heard the sound effects, and I was like, yeah, this is probably messing her up for life. So I'll just play something else. But my biggest change was when I had a kid, and I know this is a stupid thing to say, oh, when you have a kid, all of a sudden you start having emotions, because you should have those before you have a kid. But when I played The Last of Us for the first time, I'm not sure if you played this game, I was like, wow, this is a very emotional scene, but look at that popcorn ceiling, it looks so real. And now I can't even think about this game. And it's not just The Last of Us. Ever since I became a parent, any media I consume, I feel like I'm living it so much harder. Is it just me, or did you guys go through the same thing? How games hit me so much harder now, especially in the emotional feels. But that's definitely since I had a kid, and I'm not sure if it's just because I'm a kid, I'm getting older, but. Did you go through the same thing, Eric?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I just had a Twitter conversation earlier today about the exact idea of the emotional impact in entertainment media, especially comparing video games to movies.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't pursue video games that have an emotional kind of gut punch aspect. Mm-hmm. I just play them just to tune out and relax. I don't want that emotional payoff. The gameplay hook keeps me. I might seek movies out that way.
Yeah.
It's like watching a movie like Logan after being a father.
Yeah.
That did affect me more.
Yeah.
So I would say I think I have grown more sensitive to it. The only example I can really think of is because I don't seek those experiences intentionally. But when I heard about the game That Dragon Cancer,
oh man, I can't even play it.
I immediately said that is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad it exists, but I'm never going to play it.
No, me neither.
I'm not going to go play it. And I'm glad it's out there, but definitely, even just things like the little jokes used in games, little things that aren't taken seriously. I don't do jokes about babies anymore. I used to. I used to be that guy. Now I'm like, ooh, that's not even cool. Don't even.
Yeah.
No, I have a baby now. That's not. Yeah, so there is a change. I may not experience it often, but it's there.
Yeah. How about yourself, Reed?
I'd say that as a kid, games stories didn't matter as much to me. I liked the action. I liked the graphics. I liked what you were doing. I remember specifically Final Fantasy VII, Barrett and his daughter. That storyline, I was just like, oh, this is so wishy-washy. Why are we all right, why am we doing this? Like, come on, let's do more Cloud, Typhon, Aeroflot, there's love triangle. Like, what's going on? But then, as I got older, and especially when I had a daughter, when my daughter was born, I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition, and I started to really care about my party members a whole lot more, and I don't know why. I just felt like all of a sudden I was really into, like, you guys aren't just digital people I can send out to fight for me. You're characters with backstories and everything, and I love you, and nothing bad can happen. I had those feelings before with, like, Mass Effect, but that's because you were, like, really into the character. But now it was like, no, it's my job as a protector to keep the party safe and do everything right.
You're my family.
Things like that. Exactly. And Last of Us was a game that, I played it, and I played it again after my wife gave birth to our daughter, and I was kind of a wreck because, you think about it very differently. But fast forward back to the Barrett thing was I played Final Fantasy VII again because I usually like to play it in the summer when it's just kind of a lazy time to play some games. And I remember playing the Barrett storyline this time and being like, oh man, I really like this. This is really touching. Like, I really like the character now. And I'm like, wow, that's such a transformation from when I was like 11 or 12 years old to 30 years old, feeling like, wow, this is like, this story was completely lost on me. And I've noticed that in some older games, like, I'm realizing, like, oh, wow, this was a really good sentimental moment in this game. And it completely went over my head because I had no experience of what it's like to feel that way. So how could I know? But I think that speaks to the power of games, is that the stories are going from Sonic showing up in the Green Zone, knowing he just has to jump on Dr. Robotnik to save the animals, to the animals giving you a soliloquy about their lives and why they need to be saved and things like that. And you have voice actors like Troy Baker who are delivering it, and motion capture, and Kojima making people dress up in weird mocap suits to do that stuff. The way they tell stories in games, I mean, it's just natural. I mean, you go see a movie, you can go see a tear-jerking movie, and you're going to go to a tear-jerking movie. I think we're getting to the point where you're going to play a tear-jerking game. And great example is Last Guardian. For 8 years, people debated whether or not the Griffin dog, Trico, would die or the boy would die. That's how people interpreted the game, because they knew games could have an emotional experience on you just like film or just like any other work of art.
Yeah. It's funny, Reed, because I think our daughters were born around the same time, because I was also playing Dragon Age Inquisition in the first night. Like, I played like 100 hours of the game because you all still sleep. But I think it's interesting how when I look at what games meant, how they were present, and what they mean to me now is somewhat constant, but it's me that has changed throughout my gaming experiences. So I was just curious to see how you guys experience that as well. Now, how do you see yourself in games like 5 to 10 years from now? Because I honestly can't really, well, maybe 5 years I can kind of imagine what it's going to look like, but 10, 20 years down the line, I'm going to be like a 55-year-old man. Like, I can't wait to retire and play games all day, but I can't even imagine what it looks like. Do you think you ever have a drop-off point, Eric, for yourself?
That's a really fun, good question. Anytime you get to conjecture about futurism.
Yeah.
5 years down the line, I think I'll be pretty similar. I think I'll still have young kids. I think I'll still sneak off to my office to play whatever one Switch game I'm obsessed with for the year. That'll probably still be true. But I am looking forward to like 10, 11, 12, 13 years down the line.
Yeah.
Am I going to play video games side by side with my kids? Like, are we going to sit down and play a co-op game? Like, and what kind of narrative experience is that going to be 12 years from now?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be next to my son on one side and my daughter on one side, and we're both going to be these, like, decked out steampunk sci-fi fantasy warriors that have embarked on this quest for the past 2 years of our life, and in this full-fledged three-dimensional virtual environment?
Yeah.
We're going to, like, pull the sweat-soaked helmets off our heads. And my wife, their mom, is going to think we're all nuts, and she's just going to have to live with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think one key component is I don't think I am good at predicting it, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, Reed probably has all the secrets he can't talk about because at least for 2 years ahead.
They never tell us anything. We get just as surprised as you guys.
Yeah.
No, but you know, I think Eric's right. Is I don't really know how my role will change, but actually, kind of taking the conversation and flipping it just a little bit is I kind of know that I'll still have games in my life because of the relationship my dad and I have just through video games. And I know I've told you about it before, but I'm a huge fan of the NHL hockey series by EA Sports. And a few years ago, when the Xbox 360 came out, my dad really wanted to play the hockey game and learn more about it. So we got him an Xbox 360 and NHL, and he just played it casually on his own. And he would ask me tips, and I would play against him and just like destroy him, like 8-0 or 7-1. But it was like we make this joke. It was like the Simpsons episode where Homer is taught to ride a motorcycle by Bart. And I was like teaching my dad all my hockey tricks on how to win. And then I came home to college and he's playing the game. He was always playing it. And then he's like, oh, they have this team mode, EASHL, where you play 5-on-5 hockey. You play one position and computers fill out the rest. So you actually have to do what a hockey player does if you want to win. And we started playing it together. And we went from being like, I never played ice hockey. I played lacrosse, the Canadian grass version of hockey. So that, like, I didn't know anything about hockey theory other than what I'd covered and what I knew being a reporter. My dad didn't either because he wasn't extremely athletic growing up. So he wasn't like a sports star. But now we've been playing this game and we've gotten so good at it. We're in like the top division and we play every few nights. We play like 2 or 3 matches. We actually get in like little mini arguments with each other where I'm like, well, no, Dad, you weren't covering the slot there, and that's why that pass came in. He's like, well, you're supposed to be playing defense, but you're acting like a winger, and But what I learned from that was that I realized is that video games, there's no age, there's no reason age should keep you from playing games. I think that maybe ability or motor skills, like if you're older, you may not be able to react as quickly, so you may not be able to play a certain game as much. But I don't think age really sets a limit on when you can stop playing games. And I think it's all about how you want to engage with games. And so that's why I kind of bring it up with my dad is I think about, well, will my daughter and I play games? Well, I absolutely think so because my dad and I play games. And my dad, it wasn't even that he is a huge game fan. It's when I joined the ESA, he really wanted to learn more about the industry because he was excited that I was in it. And he got an Xbox One on launch day. Like my dad, 60-some years old, went to the store on launch day and got an Xbox One because he reserved it. He pre-ordered it. That's insane. And so it just makes me think about like I can do that when I'm older, and that would be a way for me to connect with my daughter. My dad and I could play NHL over the internet while I was at college, and I could check in with him and say like, "Hey, what's up, Dad?" When my wife and I moved away and we're doing our own thing, that was a way for us to connect and talk without just being on a cell phone, without just texting. It was so much more. And now it's like I feel like my relationship with my dad is just stronger than it's ever been because we've learned so much from each other through playing games. And I kind of bring it back to the main question is that's why I don't really want it to be age-gated. I kind of feel like I'm not going to enforce an age gate on myself because I've seen so much positive from me and my dad playing together that I'd love to have that relationship with my daughter or, any other child or friend in that same way.
Yeah, for myself, I don't think I'll have a hard drop-off. Like right now, I'm going through a bit of a phase where I'm just too busy. Like I haven't really sat down with the game for a while, and I think that risk is always there in adult life that at some point just it just falls off, and it's so easy to get back in. I just want to make sure that in the future I have this one game that I'm like extremely good at, so I can always like impress my kids. Like my mom hasn't played a game in her life except for Tetris, and she would destroy me. Like on my old Nintendo, I would come home from school, she would be like on her knees in front of the TV, level like 14, a billion points. I was like, okay, Mom, like I'll just beat you in the next hour. I've never beat that woman in my life.
That's crazy though, because I have like the exact same story, but it's my aunt and Dr. Mario and my dad, and they neither of them played games that much, but Dr. Mario, that got heated. Like we had some Thanksgivings where the Dr. Mario match went down and it got a little too close, and we're like, all right, we're doing a rematch here or not,
Yeah, no, I have this game now that I can beat my father-in-law, which is the quiz game. And he thinks it's because I have faster fingers because I am used to it, but it's really because I know a lot more pop knowledge than he does. Until he picks like a sports category or like math, and I'm like completely toasted.
Yeah, math. Who needs math?
Yeah,
gross.
It's terrible. But I hope I've always been interested in this stage of life where I can afford to buy the new PlayStation, even though my wife's like, do you really need another PlayStation? Don't you already have a PlayStation 3?
But this is 4, honey.
Yeah, I know, 4 Pro even. So I'll see the next console happen, and I don't think it's going to be such an upgrade. But I can't even imagine 20 years down the line when my daughter's like 23, calling in from college like with a button on her face, where we play like Hearthstone 3 together. Like I don't even know what kind of form it's gonna take, but I think I'm with you, Eric, that I'm looking forward to it. Also knowing if it doesn't happen, then it's also fine. But I like thinking about it. I can see her growing up and taking an interest in. I would love to play Mario Kart with her, but I think I have to wait a couple of more years.
You know what I'm not looking forward to?
Hmm?
I have this sneaking suspicion that one of my kids will go way too deeply into video games and get addicted.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to try and sit down and be like, look, you got to cut back. Like, your grades at school or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, your friends, I noticed you aren't hanging out with them anymore. Or, like, you don't see them anymore. You're keeping weird hours. And he's going to be like, but Dad, isn't this exactly what you were like? I'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
it is.
You got such a good
That was me. That was me.
Is that something you're going to think about? Like, because we know all the good things. But, like, do you think there is a point where you're going to be like, okay, now you're going to go pick up a ball and go play outside? Or is it so normalized for you now that it doesn't really matter how much time you're going to spend with it?
Well, I think that, I grew up playing sports and video games, and I kind of felt like the nerd on the sports field who knew about all the big games, but couldn't talk about it because no one else on the team really was playing those sort of games. But I just think that really it's that video games are just becoming so common that you really aren't even going to think about it anymore. I mean, it's not really so much going to be about like, okay, get off that video games. It's going to be more or less about like, okay, we're going to go do this now, or, trying to just integrate in life. And I think a good way of that is by setting an example as yourself, as a parent. And the way to do that is, to show, kids respond to their parents or their mentors or leaders based on what they see them do. They're very visual. And so if they see you, going outside to do stuff, they're going to come and want to do it with you. They're going to want to be with you. And if you're going to want to play video games and be on the computer all day, they may just want to sit there and they're going to see that. And so I think that really the way I think that you can balance it is just by having that ability to be like, okay, we're going to go do this now, and then we're going to play games. My parents always used games as like a carrot or reward for like school. It didn't really work with me, but what they ended up learning was that games were really teaching me things that school was not going to teach me, by the way of sparking my curiosity into things like broadcasting, video production, journalism, writing. I think that when kids are young, you definitely they're definitely really into the games. But when they get into their teenage years, I think that's when it's like, if you're noticing them playing them a lot, I don't think the conversation to have is, whoa, you need to stop playing all these games, because it actually could be, you know what, why are you playing all these games? Do you want to make these? Do you know how much a game developer makes out of college? Because you're doing something now that could be turned into something greater. And that's kind of how I felt about games. I played all these games growing up, and my parents were always like, Reed, your grades aren't the best. But, I was like, I don't like school. But it doesn't excuse it. You should do the best you can in school. But over time, I think my dad and mom started to see, like, well, no, Reed's really smart with technology. He can pick up any technology and just learn it right away. And I credit that with video games for normalizing you learning all sorts of button patterns, button inputs, different ways to solve problems. Failure that doesn't actually end the game, but you can fail over and over again and learn new ways. There's so much to be learned from video games. I don't know that I'd want to be like, okay, you can't play games, but I definitely know that I'd want, as a parent, and I will be, making sure that there's a lot more to do than just play video games, and making that very apparent.
I can come up with any kind of plan I want, but the truth is I won't be able to say no to her anyway. So I'm
yeah,
sure why
you
worry
actually take
about
everything
this.
I just got away because my daughter like, please, Daddy, and
it's just gonna happen. And at the same time, like a news article came out today about the biggest Fortnite streamer who's making like $350,000 a month on subs. So maybe if she wants to buy Daddy a new TV every now and then from our Twitch spot streaming money, then it's fine too.
But even that is like Twitch is broadcasting. Like I had a young kid at the ESA office once, and he told me he really liked watching Twitch, and that's how he consumed his video games. And I was like, you know what a Twitch broadcaster is? They're a journalist. They're a talking head. They're a news person. They're an influencer. They're a brand manager. They do so many things that we hire in this and PR and advertising. That if you recognize and then turn a kid onto it, like, yeah, your favorite streamer is actually very much like a brand manager. And that's something you can do and make money doing. So.
Yeah, and that is, I think, relatively new, the concept of like actually making a living off of games. But yeah, she doesn't have to be a lawyer if she wants to be a Twitch streamer for a couple of years and make $1 billion. Like I'm pretty okay with that.
We should lobby the What's Good Game girls to take our daughters under their wing to train them to be Twitch superstars.
Oh, that'd be great.
There you
go. That would be fun. Yeah, we'll make that work.
Right.
The next generation in 20 years. But yeah, no, my mom was very much like, oh no, you have to play outside. You can only play for an hour. And then she did talk like that and all that. And then you can play your game. But like, I'm going to be such a dork. You're like, oh no, you want to play, come play with Daddy. Just we'll play for hours. Mommy's asleep anyway. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. So, like, our kids are going to grow up, and this podcast is going to be super popular like 20 years from now, and it's going to be archived somewhere. So we'll use this as a time capsule. So when they watch this 20 years from now, and they see us old guys talking about what games are like today, like what message should we bring forward to them when they are doing their own podcast 20 years from now? Like, what one piece of advice you would give our kids? Eric, I'll start with you.
Oh no. Reed, go first. I got to think about this one.
Oh my gosh.
Reed goes first, yeah.
Kind of spitballing off the head is I'd say play everything, try everything. And the reason I say that, don't just play things because people say, oh, this is the absolute best game of the year. Play it. Play something that interests you. Get inspired by this. Video games have inspired me in so many ways. From doing video production where I'm like, oh, I really want my video to feel like this trailer or sound like it, or even like just like the social media I do with E3 during the show. Basically, I get to act like a fan for an entire week. And basically what I do is I just kind of let any walls I have about like, oh, I don't like this style of game as much as this style of game down, because I just want to learn what all these great creators are making. And there's so many amazing people in the games industry. I feel like it's not going to be as much of a problem as it was like for us growing up, where games were this, you use it, the outcast nerds, girls don't play games, boys that play games are nerdy, and you're never going to date anyone or have a life. Well, all three of us have daughters, so I think we're pretty successful. But I hope my daughter doesn't feel that way about technology, feel as if there's a point in, especially kids' lives, where they go to school and suddenly something they really like isn't cool anymore. And I think that can be video games for some kids. And I don't want my kid to ever feel like they can't be themselves and enjoy the things they like. And I also would, like you say, if they turn into gamers, that's awesome. If they don't, I'm not going to force it on them. But I just kind of think about that message of play games. Don't let people tell you can't play it because you're a girl or because your friends, your guy friends on the sports team don't play video games with you or don't like Japanese games or something like that. Video games are an incredibly expressive medium, not just for the creators, but for the players. Think about how many games you could create your own character, create your own level, create your own whatever. Create your own is like the big phrase there, because games just give you this incredible power to be creative and inspirational and doing whatever you want to. It's like when someone picks up Skyrim and you say, have you finished the main quest? And they go, no, I've been playing 100 hours because I've been running around doing everything else. Why? Because they were inspired by this world to go live and do whatever they wanted to. And I think that's kind of the message, is not, just if you love it, keep going for it, enjoy it. try everything, and just let this medium inspire you the same way books and movies and music and art has inspired people for generations, dating back hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. Eric, do you need more time?
Well, what was the question again?
Like what message would you give your kid if they would watch this 20 years from now and they just started getting into like the age where they can play freely and maybe start having kids of their own? Although by then they'll probably get kids like 45 because that's when life starts. What have you learned that you would like to pass on if they would have the opportunity?
Sure. Hey kiddo, it's your daddy. You know what? I'm sure we've had lots of conversations over the years, and I hope you've listened as I've imparted something reasonable and wise, and I hope you've gained the better parts of my values and not the worst parts. Play whatever video games you enjoy. I'm not worried about it. Play what you want. Play what you like. Let it be a healthy part of your life. I would recommend really sucking the marrow out of the bones of your experience there. Dive in as fully and deeply as you want. But the moment it makes you angry, the moment you feel that toxicity from the community or from your own experience, the moment that you realize you're using your leisure time to be frustrated, refocus. Step back. Think about those values and think about our other conversations. Maybe that means you need to cut back. Maybe it just means you need to try a new game. But I hope throughout all of that you know that I am open to the conversation. I would love to hear about your joys and your struggles, even in something as quote-unquote frivolous as video games. I would love to hear what characters are resonating with you and why. What characters do you not identify with but have made you curious? What plot has really stuck out in your mind for a clever twist? What are you secretly wondering in the back of your head? Did anybody else notice this? Or am I the only person who thought this was cool? What's something that everybody else thought was cool and you don't understand why? What are the questions that you're embarrassed to bring up? What are the things that you're proud of yourself accomplishing but you think it's a silly thing no one else will appreciate? Please know now, sincerely, that I would love to hear that about you. Because your experiences and what you choose to do reflect who you are. And who you are is a person that I love deeply.
Well, yeah, now I have to follow that, so that sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't get me to write your phrase. Lucky.
Yeah, it's a funny thought though that our kids are gonna play retro games and they're gonna play like Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, and
This is ancient.
These ancient games.
Why did they bother? What is this?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about trying to explain, like, this is the first Legend of Zelda to your kids when they're, like, thinking Breath of the Wild is the first or the, like, oh, that's the original Zelda game I grew up with. And it's like, oh, no, let me show you.
I've already seen the videos that blow my mind. Like, when now there's videos on YouTube where you hand a child a Game Boy and they start tapping the screen. And they're like, why isn't it doing anything? And it's like, that's like they're going to wonder why we had buttons. And we thought we didn't think anything of it.
I always think about what our kids might take for granted, and mine was memory cards. Remember having to have a PS4 or a PS1 memory card, and you can only have like 16 blocks to save, and Madden would take up like 8 blocks, and you're like, well, I can't save anything or something. Like kids today, now they have the cloud. They're like, oh, I can download my save anywhere I go. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's incredible to think about the games, the things they're going to grow up with in games.
Yeah, and like, what technology is going to blow their mind? Like, what's going to be the advancement that really makes a big difference? Because I'm old enough to remember when games went three-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, going from pixels to polygon, that was just incredible. Are they even going to have a similar jump? And what's it going to look like if they do? That is a fun thing.
Yeah, I don't think we can ever... Well, I think everything might improve, but even if I would have shown myself like what virtual reality would look like today, that would have been like magic to my 8-year-old self, even though it was sort of around. I was playing Dragon Ball Z Fighters, and like this looks like the cartoon. If I would have shown this to my 8-year-old self, like he would probably die, thinking like, what? This isn't real.
No way.
But it's gonna be funny to look back on what we do today and how our kids are gonna like experience this, our experiences. So my message would be like to look at what the Eric guy just said, because that was really good.
Yeah,
just follow that. Yeah, he was a good friend of Daddy when you were a kid. But my main message, like, love what you love. Like, if you like something very specific, just love it relentlessly and don't be ashamed of enjoying things, because it's good to enjoy things, and I think that's the most important thing, because I've enjoyed this and I've loved this for a long time, and it has brought so much good to my life, and I'm trying to do good through the medium as well, because it can be more than you just pressing buttons. Like, there's a whole world attached to this that you could get into, and like, games bring so much joy, and they bring joy to me in a very straightforward way. But going back to like able gamers, where for some people this is the only escapism that they can get, and the only way for them sometimes to have experienced the everyday experience they can have for themselves, like, that is a powerful thing. So don't look down on what seems to be a game, because it sounds so simple, but it's for some people life-altering experiences. So enjoy it, love it. If it's still around, maybe it's not. I don't know. We never know what might happen. But it's probably going to be around in some form. It might be simplified. It might get even better. We'll see. But just love it. Love your hobbies and love your neighbor. Because then everything's going to be okay. So that's, I think, a good message for our kids when they watch this on the YouTubes 2 Red XL for $15 a month in
YouTube neural implant.
Yes. Oh man, Black Mirror button right here. I'd sign up. But it's gonna be interesting. Like, I wish we could get a glimpse of what's in store, but we probably wouldn't believe it. So we're gonna go play a game now, and it's called Podcast and Chill, where I'm gonna ask you, so what do you do, and do you want to promote anything? And you're gonna say, yes, this is what I do, and that's the correct answer. So I'll start with you, Reed. What do you want to chill for tonight?
I'll tell you what, ESA Cast, it's the podcast I started with the Entertainment Software Association. It's not really a policy podcast. I know people know ESA for its political, government, and video game industry policy, but what we've been doing is bringing on folks from the industry to talk a little more in depth about themselves, their stories in the industry, and telling stories about these people. We had a great interview with the CEO of Triceum Games, Andre Thomas, who's from Germany, and talked to us about how he had never played Oregon Trail. But he's like, he makes educational games, but he's never played the Oregon Trail. And I just thought that was amazing that someone who could make educational games had not played that in their formative years growing up, but actually ended up playing it later. We've also had Justin Corcoran from Phosphor Games in Chicago, and he talked to us a lot about Midway and the aftermath of Midway kind of collapsing and dispersing all these game developers across this the city of Chicago and the community that's grown up there. So, and of course, we always do ESA Plays, which is our weekly Twitch stream, and we'll be playing Puyo Puyo Tetris Deathmatch. We got a tournament going on this coming up Friday, so come check it out.
Awesome. And where can we find you?
You will find us, so for our live stream, you will find us on Facebook Live, because Facebook Live is actually quite awesome. And so you can just go to our ESA page for that. For the ESA Cast, we're on the Apple iTunes Store and on SoundCloud. And, if most everyone has a way to get to a podcast, go ahead, hit subscribe. And I think you'll be surprised at some of the guests we're going to get. And we've got some we've put a lot, we've actually recorded quite a few episodes already in the can. And we'll be releasing them, and we're going to be doing more. I'm headed out to GDC, 19 PAX East, a lot of opportunities, a lot of great people, and I just want to as a journalist, I love telling more in-depth stories about the athletes I covered, and I've always wanted to do that for video games as well. And this is an opportunity for me to do it, so I like doing it.
Now about yourself on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
Oh, at Read Us Hours. So
right.
Just my name and my pretentious middle initials. I'd like to use it.
I'm in that club now too.
How about you, Eric? What do you want to shill for tonight?
Yes. So all I do is tweet. I don't really do anything else. So you can find me on Twitter at Eric V Bailey. That's E as in elephant, R as in red, I as in ice. I'm not going to spell the whole thing. It's Eric V Bailey.
I'll try to do like lower thirds and stuff, but I'm not sure if I can.
No, that's not a problem. But whatever I am doing, you'll hear about it there. I like to write, so I'll write about video games. I'll write about my opinions. I'll write about my family, my faith. I'm hoping to write some cheesy science fiction this year. I'm going to do that. You might see some image riddles, some bad jokes. I have enough of a following that I enjoy discussion questions, so a lot of mornings I'll ask a question and end up getting anywhere between 50 and 100 responses. And that's just a really cool thing about just sharing life together online in this crazy digital age we experience now. So, whatever I run a retro gaming website. I have projects I'm working on in the future and behind the scenes right now. I'm always up to something, so just come along for the ride.
Good. I highly might recommend following Eric on Twitter, because it's kind of how we met as well. We haven't met in person yet, but it might happen at some point. Maybe we'll never know. Reed, I'm looking forward to seeing you at PAX East. We'll go be tall together. We usually tower over everybody else at conferences, so that's a lot of fun.
Just remember, if you get lost at PAX and you need to know where you are, just look up, and Wood and I might be tall enough to find your, where you land.
How tall are you, Reed?
6'5".
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same for me.
This is so cool. Because I'm 6'3". So this is probably like the first time I've hung out with two guys that are taller than me. Wow. I'm not used to that.
We should hang out definitely more often.
Being tall is pretty awesome, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
Until
so
you're
many
the grocery
people
store.
will know the world on top of their refrigerator because they can't see it. They'll just never know.
No.
But we do. We see it.
That's where the
You
cool
never
stuff
clean up
happens.
there.
No.
Yeah.
And for myself, I am the Hashdaganist on Twitter. The O is a 0 because the original handle was taken, and she wouldn't give it to me, unfortunately. And you can find me at thehashdaganist.com, where I have my little website. There I try to host a podcast or write a story that I feel like. But you probably already know because you're following me and you're watching this podcast, so I really don't need to shill myself. So what I'll do shill is I talked about these guys several times tonight. Able Gamers, Take This. These are two organizations that I really like, love, and support. So follow them on Twitter as well, at takethis.org and at Able Gamers, because they do a lot of good, and they could help. You can help them by just being aware of it and see what you can do. So thank you, my guest, Eric Reed, for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks,
I think it was a fun conversation. We had some technical issues in the beginning, but we made it work. And
that was fun too.
It is also fun, and people don't even know because it was all before we pressed record. And I hope it's still recording because otherwise I'm gonna cry. But thank you so much for listening. I like this show. It was a nice conversation that I wanted to have. So every week we'll have a slightly different conversation, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter, and then we'll talk soon. Thank you. Have a good night.